Welcome back to Following Nodon, a Stormlight podcast. This week is returning to our Stormlight current content, or the Keeping Up with Collins. I'm just going to say that every single time.
Oh gosh.
Um, Paul, how are you?
I'm excited to talk about Stormlight again.
You haven't talked about
There's
Stormlight in a while.
it's been a while. So my theories may be kind of off the wall and ridiculous because I feel like I don't remember enough of the minor details in order to casually disprove them myself. So let me know what you think. I don't even know what we're talking about, so we'll just see what happens. I'm excited.
But we'll start with Elliot. Elliot, how are you?
Throw in there that I'm excited to talk about Stormlight, but I'm a little worried that the Cosmere chamber of my mind palace is starting to reach critical mass. Like there's no more room in there for Cosmere knowledge, and so as we're shoving in Mistborn stuff, I think Stormlight stuff is starting to fall out the window. So there's just so much at this point. The possibilities are incredible.
Something that I think
Uh,
will help you is once we finish Mistborn, you won't have to have a bunch of theories about Mistborn anymore. You'll have
Yeah,
a bunch of answers, and then that part of the anyway.
I have to stop you. I agree with you, Elliot. Did you just refer to your brain as a mind palace? Because
didn't want to skip over that.
that really stuck to me, and I have to address it.
Have you ever
Never
watched
heard that.
Sherlock?
I guess not.
What?
I
You
mean,
need
I've watched some of the Sherlock Holmes movies, but are you referring to the show
the
or
BBC show, yeah.
no? I haven't
The
seen the
greatest
show.
TV show on Earth. Actually, that's Andor. The second greatest TV show on
That's
Earth.
a big claim.
You need to go watch
Making
Sherlock.
some,
Oh my
you're making
goodness.
some big claims here, Trevor.
Anyway, so today we're talking about the Way of Kings, all the way back to the Way of Kings. It's been 3 years since any of us have touched or actually 3 years since we started the Way of Kings. And we are going to be revisiting the death rattles at the beginning of each chapter in part 1 and part 4. I'm fairly confident on that. In the Way of Kings, there are death rattles. And at the end of the book, it's revealed um, to the reader that these are taken very deliberately by Taravangian's surgeon doctors, and they have the presence of an unmade. They don't really know that at the time, but they've the presence of an unmade, and it's causing these death rattles that are just little one-line quotes of the future, and then the diagram is trying to put them all together to try to predict the future. So we are going to go through them one by one and come to a consensus on, have we seen this yet? If yes, then we'll just acknowledge where this was fulfilled and moving on. And if we haven't, then maybe we'll talk about where we might see this in the future. So there's going to be a lot of speculation on Stormlight 5. If you don't really want to think about Stormlight 5, this episode is not for you. Before we begin, there are a couple relevant questions from the fandom that have been written down on the website that I wanted to read for you guys so that you guys are up to date with everybody before we start this, so that I can answer a couple of your questions preemptively, and you can be on the same page as everyone. This first one comes from Brandon Sanderson in his Stormlight 5 update number 1. We covered update number 2 in our first Stormlight Current episode. This is from update number 1 that he posted to Reddit and his website. Quote from Brandon Sanderson: all of the 65,000 words I've written so far, except for the prologue, has been on Szeth's plotline, and I'm loving how it's shaping up. I know the Szeth backstory has been a long time coming. I hope it lives up to your expectations. There are some interesting lore secrets here to reveal, and the climax is something I've been building to since book 1. Indeed, you'll find death rattles from the first volume referencing the events here in this sequence. Here's the second one. This is a question to Brandon Sanderson, and it says, will every death rattle have a canonical point of reference at some point in a coming novel? And Brandon Sanderson answered, I don't intend them all to. I do intend most of them to, but I don't intend them all. Some of them happened, but were not relevant to the story on screen, is what I've decided. So we won't necessarily have an answer for all of them that we're going to read.
This is another one of those things, Paul, that you were joking about before of he might just dangle some things in front of us and let us hunt for them forever, and then they never actually come true.
Yes.
Exactly.
And then the third one before we get started here is, are the death rattles always about the future, or can they be about the past? The answer from Brandon Sanderson is, they are not always exclusively about the future, but they are not generally going to be about the past either.
It feels like another vague one.
I'm not sure that's really an answer, but
sure, go ahead and think about it. It's like they're not all about the future, but they're also not really going to be about the past. That seems odd. Anyways.
So without any further ado, let's start. It starts at the prologue. This is the very first words you read of the book besides the prelude, I guess. Let's start here. The love of men is a frigid thing, a mountain stream only 3 steps from the ice. We are his, O Stormfather, we are his. It is but 1,000 days, and the Everstorm comes. Go.
I have a prediction. So this, just looking at the cadence of these sentences, it sounds very like a wizened, like a wise person, kind of like a plea, like they're seeing an oncoming threat, i.e., the Everstorm, perhaps, and it's like a "Oh God, help us" kind of cry, you
Yeah.
know. And I'm trying to think of like some wise-ish character that we know exists, but like haven't seen up close. So a couple of my thoughts are like, I feel like in book 5 we're going to see a lot of Zeth's backstory. Maybe it's his father or a family member or someone in his life over there who's like talking about the Everstorm coming. Like kind of has some kind of power, whatever, foresight, whatever, knowledge. Someone who's very knowledgeable about this stuff, but we don't know them. We don't know how. That's just where my mind goes to as something like that. Um, Also, just the phrasing of like "we are his," "Oh Stormfather, we are his," and like the metaphor with like ice and streams and mountain and stuff like that. It just feels very. Oh gosh,
Shinovar.
That's the place. Yeah, it feels very Shinovar to me.
Okay. Elliot?
Thinking of did we get a countdown to the Everstorm
Yes.
from our good buddy Renarin?
In
It's
the
almost like
beginning of
this
Words of
is,
Radiance, yes.
yeah. It's almost like this is the start of that countdown. It is but 1,000 days, and the Everstorm comes.
Which is 1 year on Roshar. But the I just think it's interesting that the first mention of the Everstorm is way back here. I would have if you had asked me when the first time the Everstorm showed up in as a word, I would not have guessed before chapter 1 of The Way of Kings. I'm not sure I have too much hypotheses on this one. I like your idea of Shinovar there, Paul. I could see this maybe referring to Zeth's father as well. We know we're getting more information about that in Stormlight 5. And then, the second half is just the first mention of the Everstorm setting the stakes for what is to come. Anything else? All right. Elliot, do you want to read the one in front of chapter 1?
Chapter 1, Storm Blessed. You've killed me, bastards. You've killed me. While the sun is still hot, I die. Sorry, I don't know where that accent came from.
This has a
Scotland.
different meaning now. You scallywags. You've killed me.
You just can't I can't like say bastards without like a Scottish accent behind it. It's just like,
That's fair.
That's fair.
yeah.
I don't have too much to
My
Sorry,
say about
distracted
this
everybody
one.
there.
It's
my
fine.
big prediction is that it's when someone dies.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's my big prediction. Maybe a big character, an important character.
I don't have too much to say on this one. I don't think it's anything foreshadowing. It's just telling the reader that these are when someone dies, that they are like, I think it's just establishing death rattles as a concept. I don't think it's really doing anything further.
I want to try and like spin a theory on honor being the voice of this,
Okay.
but I don't know if it makes sense. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's there.
I thought of Tervangian potentially in the future. If we're talking about this as the future thing, this
Oh.
is future as of Words of Radiant or Way of Kings, right?
Right.
So that could be super far off. But like, I'm guessing we haven't seen this, so it's either something we will see, a character we will see die, or it's just not gonna be a relevant thing. And it's like Trevor was saying, just kind of establishing death rattles. So, mind if I do chapter 2? Unless
All
you'll have
yours.
anything else. 10. This is for chapter 2. Honor is dead. It says 10 orders. We were loved once. Why have you forsaken us, Almighty? Shard of my soul, where have you gone? I think so. So this is a death rattle, right? The only thing I can think of, I mean, well, the chapter title is Honor is Dead. Like what Elliot was saying, it could be Honor,
Yeah.
hypothetically. I had also thought of potentially Ishar.
Okay.
If Ishar were to die or something like that, or to have like a big moment, maybe
The
why he's going crazy, or like all this stuff, you know? Like,
mhm.
I feel like of any of our heralds, the bondsmith would make the most sense. I had also thought of Yezrian, but I feel like the
Yeah. What
bondsmith
does
would still
Yezrian
make
say
more
when he
sense.
dies?
Would any of those people use the term almighty though? That
No. Uh, the one that jumped out to me first was actually like, I don't know how much credibility it has, because I would apply this to the past. I would apply this to a Knights Radiant, like maybe right after the Recreants and the fall of the Knights Radiant has
yeah.
just died and is musing on that. That would be where I would fit
That's a
this,
good prediction.
but I don't know if, again, we're allowed to go to the past, as that word of Brandon said.
The shard of my soul part is intriguing, but maybe misleading perhaps, because I want to say like again, splintering of honor, like shard of my shard soul. I don't know.
Hmm.
Doesn't quite fit.
I would apply it to a spren, personally. I could apply it to like my shard blade, or my spren is a part of me, shard of my, like,
Ah,
part of my soul. Where's my spren gone?
okay. Yeah, like a metaphor or arguably slightly literal,
Yeah,
almost like term of affection for your spren.
yeah.
I like that better.
All right. Chapter 3, the City of Bells, starts with: a man stood on a cliffside and watched his homeland fall into dust. The waters surged beneath, so far beneath, and he heard a child crying. They were his own tears.
Isn't this a vision that we see?
That's what I thought.
So
So the what I think you're referencing, Elliot, is Dalinar's vision given to him by the Almighty, if you remember that.
yes. One of those visions that he gets, and remember this is still at the point where he doesn't really know what those are all about, but one of them, he's standing at like a high point and he sees like destruction coming across the land or something like that.
Yeah. He actually goes into
Very
that
vague.
vision twice. Once where Odium does not interrupt him, the second one Odium does interrupt him. Um and Odium just picks that vision as one of their meeting points. But yeah, I do think this one has been met in that vision that you're talking about, Elliot. Other than that, I could maybe see this being the perspective of a Parshendi and seeing their homeland being taken by Voidbringers. Maybe.
The waters surging is a little maybe misleading again, because I feel like a lot of these are very like storm like in the vision he's watching a storm
Right.
destroy the land, I think, which is kind of watery, but when I read the waters surge beneath, I'm thinking like ocean rising up and consuming the land, which I'm not sure.
Anything brewing over there, Paul?
I don't really have much on this one. My guess is it's either some kind of vision that we've seen. It sounds like something I would believe Taravangian has seen. It sounds like something I believe Dalinar would have seen. Like it almost made me think of Dalinar after Evie dies.
Okay.
Is like kind of the energy I get from this, but I don't think that's like a direct correlation. Probably.
Bringing that up is interesting because Dalinar has so many, or old flashback Dalinar has so many mental issues after Evie dies, and he can never get her crying, and all the people in the rifts crying out of his head. That's what just popped into my mind when you said that. Chapter 4, if you got nothing else, Elliot.
Chapter 4, The Shattered Plain. I'm dying, aren't I? Healer, why do you take my blood? Who is that beside you, with his head of lines? I can see a distant sun, dark and cold, shining in a black sky.
This one's pretty
Chase
self-explanatory,
Mo?
right?
I was gonna say we can definitely say that with this head of lines that is talking about a cryptic, right?
Yeah. I don't think this child. I think this is a child. I don't think this child is voicing anyone else besides himself. Um, and he's fairly lucid at the moment. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Do you guys have anything else? About to be a light weaver, unfortunately, or at least attracting a cryptic.
Mm, brutal.
Yeah.
Could not be
Or
me.
could even just be explained as is in Carbranth at the same time Shallan is. That could be the answer as well. Chapter
So
5, Paul.
the second half of that sentence or that part kind of intrigues me. It says I can see a distant sun, dark and cold, shining in a black sky. But I think that's just a red herring. I don't actually have any predictions with that. But it does. That is like cool imagery.
I think
And
he's just glimpsing shades,
makes me
Mar.
think. You're probably right. Yeah, I think you're right. Okay. Anyways, chapter 5, Heretic. I have seen the end, and I have heard it named the Night of Sorrows, the True Desolation, the Everstorm. I would say this one's quote answered.
Yeah.
I feel like this is just as you're starting the Way of Kings, name dropping the Everstorm and stuff like that. Desolation and making you, I don't know, feel ominous.
Yeah. Fairly answered for me.
Mm-hmm.
Unless Night of Sorrows and True Desolation are meant to refer to something else that hasn't happened yet, which I don't know that we have any other evidence for that,
The
but the arrival of the Everstorm is pretty violent and dramatic. But I'm not sure that Night of Sorrows is something I'd attribute to it.
Yeah. Those terms have been used quite a lot in Words of Radiance and are not used very much after that. I'm not sure I would fully disprove that, or I'd fully prove that the Night of Sorrows is the coming of the Everstorm. The Night of Sorrows still may be yet to come.
Yeah. I think it's likely answered with the arrival of the Everstorm, but maybe not.
Chapter 6, Elliot?
Chapter 6, Bridge 4. I'm cold. Mother, I'm cold. Mother, why can I still hear the rain? Will it stop? I was just like sad. It's like I don't even.
I'm gonna say this
Is
one
it
just
like
sounds like
predicting?
Depressing. Moving on. Yeah.
yeah, it sounds just kind of
Yeah,
like the like actual death rattle of a child, like nothing special.
Yeah. It could
right.
potentially be Tien, maybe, but
Well, that's even more sad,
yeah.
Trevor. Come on.
But other than that, I don't see how this has any relevance later. Yeah, I don't know. Chapter 7. Anything reasonable. They are a flame. They burn. They bring the darkness when they come. And so all you can see is their skin is a flame. Burn, burn, burn. This one's answered, right?
Yeah, this is reference to quote Voidbringers, right?
Right. And this was when
And
the humans jumped over to Roshar. Their planet was literally on fire and they were burning. Um, and like the ash was still on their skin. What's her face at the end of Rhythm of War talks about this a couple times with Navani. And
mhm.
and then the humans turning this around to apply it to Parshendi and steal their history from them. And accuse them of being Voidbringers. But I think this one's fairly solved.
Yeah, I agree. Chapter 8,
Y-
Nearer the Flame. Victory! We stand atop the mount. We scatter them before us. Their homes become our dens, their lands are now our farms. And they shall burn, as we once did, in a place that is hollow and forlorn. This is similar to the one before, of kind of that I guess unjust dynamic between the Alethi and the Parshendi kind of thing, or is this different?
From the perspective of maybe a human after defeating the Voidbringers or the fused.
That sounds right to me.
Their
That
homes become
sounds
our dens, their lands are now our
accurate.
farms. They shall burn as we once did. This is a lot of past, though. I'm not sure.
That is a lot of past, which is technically possible given the words
Unless
of brain that we saw.
Yeah.
unless this is foreshadowing the conquer of Kolinar
Okay. Yeah.
and the fused taking over that city, making the Alethi homes their dens and their lands their farms.
Or even moving further, the fused conquering of Roshar as a whole.
Yeah.
Don't have too much else. You want to keep going, Elliot?
Chapter 9, Damnation. 10 people with shard blades alight, standing before a wall of black and white and red.
The black, uh, the wall of black and white and red are what has me thinking. The 10 people with shards blades of light, that just sounds like the heralds, right?
That-
But what do y'all think about the black and white and red?
So here's an interesting thought. The heralds, like this could easily be attributed to the heralds keeping the fused in damnation as a team, right? Like that's
Yeah.
option A where my brain goes. Option B would be our Avengers Assemble moment at the end of Oathbringer when we've got one of each of the um
Yes.
one of each of the Knights Radiant, all but they don't have shard blades at the time.
They're also not fighting. Who are they fighting at that point? They're
A
fighting.
mix between fused and Amaram's army.
Right.
I guess it does make sense. The black and white and red would be reference to the fused, right?
Right.
Okay. I was thinking a literal wall, not like a figurative wall.
Right.
So that would make sense.
The only thing I might throw out here is a potential like reforming of the Oath Pact
Yeah.
or recreation of a future version of the Oath Pact that requires one from each Order of Knight Radiant.
We get
I can see
another
that.
oath scene like we had an Oathbringer, except this time they're all tier 4s as opposed to tier 2s.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
All right, chapter 11, titled Droplets. 3 of the 16 ruled, but now the Broken One reigns. I wanted to read a question that Brandon Sanders was asked about this one because I think it's relevant here. And I'll just go ahead and read it. Given the sibling and the death rattle that I just read, was there a third shard on Roshar before Odium's arrival? And Brandon Sanderson says, Rafael. That's not how I interpreted this this question. I just assumed that the Broken One was a part of the 3. Not like an addition to the 3. But also it also begs the question, is the Broken One in reference to Odium, or is it in reference to Honor? Because if you want to take a literal approach, then it would be Honor, but if you want to be like, he's, deranged and broken in the head, then it's Odium. What do you guys think?
I'm not sure. I mean, it seems like we have to be talking about shards
Right.
because we don't have anything else that's 16 that I can think of. 3 of 16 ruled, Broken
So
One.
this sounds to me like Honor. Like, isn't it like the case where like once Honor? No, but Honor existed with the Knights Radiant too. In my head, was it after Honor's death that like Stormlight really like became a thing? Like, wasn't that part of his death? Or maybe I'm not sure on that.
I'm not
Because
sure
I'm
either.
like, if that is like when Stormlight like disperses or something after Honor's death, then it makes sense that it's like he reigns now because it's like what everything runs off of. That's like how the Knights Radiant work, but I feel like that doesn't make sense. I'm gonna kind of scratch that idea. But that is a really, really curious. This is one that I'm gonna like
What
that I'm gonna remember, I think.
what if this is not Odium? It is Honor, and it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, that's what
What
I was
if we
wondering.
get what if we get some kind of reforging of Honor, and he gets like referred to as the Broken One because he's a reforging of many broken pieces, and that's like an event we're gonna see in Stormlight 5.
Yeah, it's definitely possible.
That'd be really cool.
I think surface level this one is 3 of the 16 rules. Okay, if you're Cosmere aware, that's the 3 shards on Roshar. The Broken One reigns. That means Odium's in charge right now, and that's the end of it. But I wonder if we're doing wordplay here, and Elliot, you're correct, of reforging the Broken One, and now the Broken One reigns, Honor wins. Could definitely be an interpretation of this. But did you guys give any credibility to a fourth, as the question stated, or no? Maybe Mercy. Sorry, I have to put that in whenever I can.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I can see that as a valid reading of this. It it doesn't quite make sense to say 3 of 16 ruled, but now one of those 3 ruled reigns.
Mm-hmm.
Like the syntax of that doesn't quite
If
pass muster.
if it is a different one, then I would say that the broken one is referring to Odium as he like comes to Roshar.
Mm-hmm.
It's like 3 of 16 ruled, but now not 3 of 16 are ruling. Now the broken one
Yeah.
reigns.
Right.
It like as a completely separate thing. I don't know which shard that would be. I don't think it'd be Mercy, but
Or I feel like we're nitpicking this probably too closely at this point, but I almost want to say if the broken one is one of the 3, this would have to imply then the other two of the three are no longer ruling,
Right.
as if like, but now the broken one reigns, and then the implication is, and the other two are no longer,
Yeah, the other two are
meaning
gone.
like, right,
Right.
our odium. If we follow the honor reforged and honors the broken one, does that mean cultivation and odium are banished from Roshar, removed from Roshar? Something happened there? They get married and live happily ever after?
Oh gosh,
That
that's definitely something I don't want to jump into.
there's there's some theories about honor and cultivation having a child, but I won't get into them now.
Uh,
Um, they have the same last name, as you will, Avast. Um, and anyway, Tanavast and Corvellium Avast, and Brandon Sanderson has said that there's a distinction between Son of Honor and Son of Tanavast, because Kaladin is specifically called the Son of Tanavast, as opposed to the Son of Honor, which is referred to both as Dalinar and Kaladin are both called Son of Honor at one point. Anyway, Brandon Sanderson has said there's a distinction there, but I'm not telling you what it is.
Interesting. Something else that is interesting is our next one, which I haven't read yet.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna go ahead and guess that it's interesting. We're skipping a bit to chapter 52, A Highway to the Sun. I'm standing over the body of a brother. I'm weeping. Is that his blood or mine? What have we done?
I have two things to say about this one. A, it's already answered by the end of the Way of Kings, and it's Tien. Or B, it is yet to be answered by the end of Rhythm of War, and it could be Adolin and Renarin.
You're right, but I'm mad about it.
Sorry. I'm wondering if this is Renarin
If it
speaking
is,
of
I will be the
Adolin.
one weeping, by
Yep.
the way.
I'm wondering if this is Renarin speaking of Adolin.
I know, and I'm preemptively weeping for it. But I hope that's. I mean, okay, we can go to the next one.
You don't want to talk about it? Come on.
It's
No, those are like my two favorite characters.
it's it's the what have we done that I think is the wrench in there. If that
Ooh,
sentence
that's
was
true.
not there, it would clearly be TM, and
Yeah.
it'd be like, okay, done. But
Okay,
the what have we done doesn't seem to fit into Tien's story.
well,
I have an option 3,
doesn't
but go ahead.
Paladin have kind of feelings of guilt for having like Tien in the military or something like that? Like kind of a what have we gotten ourselves into because he wanted to go be a super soldier and save the world, you know? I,
Yeah,
I, I could see it
yeah.
Yes.
fitting. I don't think that discounts Tien personally, but it does. You know, I see what you mean.
The the brother and the his get in the way of this one, but I wonder if this is Eshonai and Venli, perhaps. Um, which would fit what have we done more closely, because Eshonai or Venli has a bunch of survival guilt as Eshonai dies to the hands of the Everstorm that she's summoned. Is what my brain jumped to when you highlighted what have we done. That's only one I thought of. All right. Chapter 53, Dunny, rest in peace. He must pick it up. The fallen title. The tower, the crown, and the spear. Before you guys go ahead, this one's a fan favorite, by the way. There are lots of speculation over this one. You could spend an hour just talking about this one.
Oh gosh, I see the potential now. So I'm gonna throw one out there that is probably a big one. Like, okay, so he must pick it up the fallen title, the tower, the crown, and the spear. The spear is obviously like people think of Kaladin with the spear, right?
Right?
Talking about the fallen title, is this saying like Dalinar is dead and Kaladin is stepping up? Is that
Maybe.
like the big one? That's
Maybe.
my guess.
Or honor could be the fallen title, and he has to pick it up.
And if you remember right, the Holin banner is the symbol of a tower and a crown.
Yep.
I did not remember that. That is a good trivia question right there.
If you go to your chapter headers in a Dalinar point of view chapter, you'll see
Ah, okay, fair. Audiobook listener here.
it.
Yeah, I feel like oh man, there's so many different things you could try and imply from this. I can definitely see it being a fan favorite, but it's like just needs like 3 or 4 more words
Yes.
in here to give you the context you need. It's so short. Fallen title. That's really throwing me for a loop. Tower, the crown, the spear. We can tie those to things. The fallen title. The fallen title. What does that even mean?
I mean, think about this. Contest of Champions. Dalinar loses. Who is there to step in? It like for the Alethi, right? That's a
Maybe.
fallen title. That I keep thinking of the fallen title as Dalinar, right? That could be other things for sure. Like you said, it could be something with like honor or a shard. Could be Todium. It could be, I don't know. Could be several things. I feel like
Yeah.
either way, it definitely just feels like Kaladin stepping up to something, right?
Right.
Because of the spear. Is there anything else that you think, anyone else you think it could be with the use of the spear? Like, it's obviously fitting for Kaladin. I feel like I could see that for being. I know Trevor had. I don't remember it all, and I don't know if we have time to talk about it all again because I feel like I remember it being a really big deal of TN kind of still being like a cognitive shadow or
Hmm.
all the stuff, right? Like it could be TN picking up a spear, could be Renarin picking up a spear because he said so all the like whole history with like fright or things like that. But I just don't feel like that's actually that fitting. You always think of Kaladin with the spear, right?
I my final answer is Elliot, I think you are correct. I think the symbol of the tower and the crown is Dalinar and the spear is Kaladin. I think those are two on the nose to be incorrect, in my opinion. The fallen title is also where I'm tripping. I would I would say the fallen title is Honors Champion. Honors Champion falls. Either Dalinar or Kaladin is picking it up for the other. That would be my guess.
That makes sense. Either way, I'm excited about this one.
Ooh, ooh, ooh. More
Uh
tangents.
oh.
What if it's Moash, the champion for Odium, and Dalinar refuses to fight him, so Kaladin steps up to fight him?
That could be.
Because we've talked about before reasons why Dalinar would refuse to fight Moash, right?
Yeah.
And I wonder if Kaladin would put that aside for Moash specific. Sorry, just wanted to throw that out there.
Would it? Would it? Would you like me to make it slightly worse?
Yeah.
I thought about Moash in the previous one that we were talking about for chapter 52. That I'm standing over the body of a brother and weeping. Is that his blood or mine? What have we done? I thought about him having a moment of redemption with
Oh, for
Kaladin.
Kaladin. Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
But anyways, just on the Moash thought, figured I'd throw that out there as well. I am so eager to see what happens with Moash, his
Me too.
character in book 5.
Me too.
So eager to see.
Elliot, do you want to read for 54?
Chapter 54, Tish. The burdens of 9 become mine. Why must I carry the madness of them all? O Almighty, release me.
This one's answered, right?
Yeah, it's just Tom, right?
Yeah, I assume it's just Talm.
Telenelli Lynn. Yeah.
The only weirdness, and I brought this up a few ago that I'm now rethinking, would Taln use the term Almighty?
Um,
I think so. I don't
he
know why wouldn't the heralds use Almighty?
did. Now you're making me second guess. I think those who are aware of shards still believe in a, a one, like above the shards, and they use the term Almighty for that. I think. and the term almighty is like misused on Roshar in reference to honor.
I was gonna say also like these people are still kind of like people and have like expressions of people.
Sure.
They're like, oh, Kalak or whatever, like people are, right? And stuff like that. So I always take those
Yeah.
with I take that with a big grain of salt. I maybe that's me discounting it. If so, I apologize, but I definitely like don't stress over that or give it too much
Yeah.
thought.
Sure.
Okay, chapter 55, an emerald brome. A woman sits and scratches out her own eyes. Daughter of kings and winds, the vandal.
This one's answered.
With
Is
Ash.
Shalash, she runs around Roshar for the first two books, like destroying statues and paintings of herself. And she's the daughter of Yezrian, the
okay.
um
I missed that. I was sitting here and panicking a little bit that that Syl that this
oh
was
no.
foreshadowing for Syl in the future.
No. I'll shut that one down. I'm pretty sure it's
You
Shalash.
you are correct. I think you are correct. But reading that made me nervous, and that was why.
All right, the last one. We will do the rest of them. There's, I don't know, 10, 12 more. We're going to do them in a part two, but this will be the last one for today. This one is from chapter 56, that storming book. And it reads, Light grows so distant. The storm never stops. I am broken, and all around me have died. I weep for the end of all things. He has won. Oh, he has beaten us.
Ominous.
I'm trying to apply this to Moash, but it does not click. Not quite.
I mean, I always think of Teravangian. I think of just our big players here: Teravangian, Dalinar. The pacing of it, like the actual like rhyme and reason of the writing, makes me think it's like not Kaladin.
Yeah.
It's like a Dalinar figure. It could be like Yasna.
Yasna's an interesting one.
It'd
My
be Navani.
the Well, an obvious answer is Kaladin, simply because he's Mr. Doom and Gloom. But I'm going to push back on that because I think that part of Kaladin's journey is done. I think he will not be Mr. Stormy Doom and Gloom moving into part 5 or Stormlight 5. He might be, but I don't see End of Rhythm of War Kaladin really saying this. I weep for the end of all things. He has won. Oh, he is. I don't see Kaladin giving up.
It's
Anymore.
almost too like it's too big picture for Kaladin too.
Yeah.
He is doom and gloom, stuck in the negative thoughts, but he doesn't weep for the end of all things.
Yeah, he's
I could
not
almost
existential like this. Light grows so
yeah.
distant,
Yeah.
so distant. The storm never stops. You know, I weep for the end of all things. That does not. That I do not think this is Kaladin.
Whoever's saying this is rather poetic and dramatic.
Could be Shallan. I think it could be a lot of our characters. You're right. It is
Could
pretty
it
poetic.
could it have already happened and it be Eshonai and her death?
Okay.
I'm not sure who the he has won would be in that scenario.
Yeah.
That could make sense of thinking that Odium has brought back the fused,
Oh, yeah.
right, and
Okay.
taken over
Yeah.
the Parshendi souls. That makes perfect sense. Of like, if you are Eshonai, like from your perspective, he has one and it is over. Like he's brought that back. Like that's just it. You
Okay.
know.
Yeah.
And she dies in the clash of these two terrible storms that seems to maybe fit with her. What she's describing there, perhaps?
She's fairly dramatic too. I could see this being applied to her. Yasna. I want to revisit Yasna real quick. Yasna is Mrs. Over the top dramatic when she wants to be, stabbing people through the throat just to prove a point. Um, but this is a little bit too religious to be Yasna, I think.
The I am
I don't.
broken doesn't seem to fit with her either.
Yeah,
She's she's a little too haughty carries a negative connotation, but she's too aloof for that. She might say I am beaten. I don't think she would say I am broken.
I understand that, but I mean, I feel like there's just a lot of things that could happen to lead her to that point.
yeah,
But I feel like she's
Very
not
true.
a.
Very true.
She's. I feel like she's not as much of like a "I weep for all the end of all things" kind of thing. She seems more of like a "so be it" kind of thing, like kind of character.
sure.
I would lean towards maybe like Navani feels poetic to me. Shalon still feels poetic to me. Um, I could still see Dalinar saying this. Potentially like
Taravangian.
Renarin. Yeah,
Ooh, Tervangian.
Teravangian. You could very much see that. I think there's still a lot of characters, but I think it just kind of said that all the characters we're naming are like good guys, and I think
For
the common thing is fear for book 5 and what is going to happen with our characters.
Uh, Another shout that I want to do right before we close here is Hasina. You could go for Kaladin's mom. If Kaladin's mom has lost her two remaining sons, she could arrive at a spot like this.
That's true.
I think I'm intrigued by this one more than many of the others just because on first reading it seems fairly obvious in that like the type of event it seems to be describing it seems to be kind of obvious, but the number of different places you can kind of insert said apocalyptic event are numerous. There's a
Yeah,
lot of characters that could say this. There's a lot of possibilities, both that have happened and could happen in the future. Yeah, this one has layers.
yeah. Anything
I was
else?
gonna say like that there are lots of times in the past too you could point to this. I feel like it's probably a little fruitless to point out all of that. I'm thinking of like what was it, the I forgot what it's called, the recreants,
Hmm.
when all the or a point leading up to the the Knights Radiant abandoning. There's just lots of the desolation. There's a ton of stuff. So this could have happened before. This could be this is a really no. I mean the storm never stops. I think implies more future from this quote, like where we are with like the Everstorms and stuff like that. I was gonna say something really sad. I was gonna say this could be Evie, could have been Evie, but
I shouldn't laugh. Sorry.
yeah, that was kind of bad, Trevor. But the storm never stops. I mean, it could be an emotional storm, right? But I'm taking that literally to be there is a continuous high storm, basically, with the stuff going on. So
Okay. Sorry. We're going on forever about this one, but one more. Um, Light grows so distant. I wonder if this could be some sort of weather in Shadesmar, and this is a Spren talking.
I thought about the Spren, but would they? I don't know that they would say things like "I am broken." All around me have died. I mean, there is like I could see the all around me have died. Like the storm never stops and I am broken doesn't feel Spren like to me.
Could be
But I could be wrong.
could
That
be
that
Sill.
that could be
Sorry.
that, that that's true. It could be.
I oh, what if oh no. Oh no. What I'm getting emotional thinking about this. What what if Kaladin is the hero the champion. And this is Syl in the moment that Kaladin dies.
Yeah.
He has won. Oh, he has beaten us. Is Moash striking down Kaladin for the last time. Oh.
I would like to formally apologize to everyone who's listening for how depressing this has become. Because, oh my goodness, I literally got chills thinking about that when you're describing it.
It fits.
Oh man, I wish that did not fit at all.
Light grows so distant.
And the
Man.
weeping one, the brothers one. Oh my gosh, if that is Renorn and Adolin, I don't know. Oh gosh, I'm gonna need to get stock up on tissues before book 5 comes out, simply just because of our speculation.
Well, on that cheery note, let's.
I'm desperately trying to reread it and to
Oh my
disprove
gosh.
this possibility, but the more I stare at it, the more it seems to fit.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Yeah, we better stop this before we get too depressed.
All right.
Wow.
So be sure to join us for part 2 of this cheery segment sometime.
Okay, on the bright side, if you tune into part 2, it can't be more sad than this. So it's gonna be a happy episode.
Okay.
I think.
As a teaser, for the first line of the next one is, quote, "I hold the suckling child in my hand, a knife at his throat." So, Paul,
Wow.
I would hold your promises that it couldn't get worse than this, because
Wow.
it certainly could.
Wow. All right, well, tune in next time. And I don't know. It's not doing very good to get people listening, I bet. I mean, that's a tough sales pitch right there.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for joining me, Paul and Elliot. We'll reconvene this at some point in the future for Stormlight Current number 3. Thanks for joining me for number 2.
All right, read on.
Hasta luego.